I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Jake. And Jake, thank you for Saturday.
Okay.
We have something for 2A.
Okay. We'll go ahead. Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Sir, we do. I'd like to add item 2A. I believe the governor's office will have something at that time that we'd like to present to somebody. But Mark, if you would, let us, we'll put it on at 2A here after we get to the first two.
I'll sit down.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Start there.
Too old to stand up.
No.
Okay.
You're almost too old to sit down.
How do you mean that?
Before we get into our agenda, we're going to do a moment of silence for Mr. Christopher Pryor. He's a member of the LaVale Volunteer Fire Department, passed away last week. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our last public business meeting?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? All right, moving to our presentations. This is National Athletic Trainer Month. We have all sorts of athletic trainers here tonight. Come on up.
Here was a second.
Grabbing that chair. Pretty good. Is this what?
Yeah. Allegany?
Allegany.
Mount Rouge? It's right here? Yeah.
There we go, okay.
Thank you.
This is a proclamation this evening from the Allegheny County government that reads, athletic trainers provide quality health care for athletes, those who are engaged in physical activity. Athletic trainers help prevent injuries, work to rehabilitate those in need, strive to educate everyone, and provide compassion and quality care to all. Athletic trainers are employed in many settings such as high schools and colleges, professional sports, performing arts, clinics, hospitals, corporations, industrial operations, and the military. Therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners, wish to sincerely thank athletic trainers for their professional contributions and proclaim this month, March 2018, as National Athletic Training Month in Allegheny County. And that's signed the Board of Commissioners, Jake Shade, Tree Brody, Phil Valentine. Congratulations.
We good?
Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for what you do.
Would you like to say anything?
Thank you. So on behalf of Pivot Physical Therapy and the athletic trainers of Allegheny County, we just would like to thank the county commissioners for the proclamation as well as the community for all the support. When I first got here at high school, athletes and parents had no idea what athletic training was, and now we are pretty much the go-to healthcare providers for the student athletes of all three county schools. And now our hope is to continue educating on what athletic trainers can do and hopefully get further involved in Allegheny County events and to provide the high-quality healthcare coverage that we are capable of. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our second proclamation tonight is for National Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Mr. John Fetchero. John, come on up.
I'd also like to invite Mr. Scott Verdice.
Absolutely.
There he is.
Okay. This is your chance. Come on up.
And this is Becky Clark from the Allegany Health Department.
Good to see you.
This is your chance. I'm going to get here in the middle.
Come on, get in here.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, this one reads, whereas problem gambling is a public health issue affecting millions of Americans of all ages, problem gambling has significant societal and economic costs for individuals, families, and businesses. It is treatable and is effective in minimizing this harm to both individuals and society as a whole. In Allegany County, the Allegany County Health Department, Behavioral Health, The Western Maryland Health System Behavioral Health Services are local resources for problem gamblers. Therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Allegany County, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2018 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month in Allegany County. We strongly encourage all citizens to have the conversation with friends or family members about gambling addiction and encourage those to seek help at 1-800-GAMBLER or helpmygambling.org. That's signed the Board of County Commissioners Creed Brody, Bill Valentine, Jake Shade. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Petro, could I have your picture solo as well?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Shea.
Commissioners,
Oh, with the
Sorry.
please, Mr. Petro had initiated this effort. I'd like to have a single photo as well as the group photo that we just did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I did just have a prepared statement to finish the.
Yeah, sure. We do a full agenda, just so.
Yes, okay. I will just, keep it a bit shorter.
Absolutely.
It's fine. Thank you, President Commissioner Jake Shea, Commissioner Bill Valentine, and Commissioner Creed Brody Jr. for your support in addressing the issue of problem gambling in Allegany County. This proclamation symbolizes your shared concern of individuals living with this disease in our county. With this proclamation, it is our hope to reach problem gamblers living with the disease and to prevent new occurrences in the future. As we know from the initial presentation, the State of Maryland's Department of Health and Mental Hygiene conducted a study before the first Maryland casino opened in 2010, which found that nearly 9% of Marylanders had gambled and that 3.4% were either pathological gamblers or problem gamblers. That department is now in the final stages of a new study, which they expect to release later this year. That will provide a picture of problem gambling in the state after more than 7 years of casino gaming. We must collectively keep an eye on the results of this study, as some quantitative data recently disseminated reflects an upward trend in problem gambling issues in Maryland. As the Maryland Center for Excellence on Problem Gambling, a department of the University of Maryland School of Medicine, reported that contacts to the helpline, 1-800-GAMBLER, included calls, texts, and tweets, increased by 8% in the fiscal year 2016 over the previous year and by 65% since fiscal year 2013. The center added that 143 people were put into treatment by providers in fiscal year 2016, a five-fold increase over the previous fiscal year. That is why now is the time for a call to action, to get out in front of the issue and call on our gaming stakeholders, family, friends, and neighbors to have the conversation that problem gambling can happen to anyone and that counseling and treatment work. We must help those suffering get past the stigma of guilt and embarrassment and encourage them to seek help by simply calling or texting the state's helpline, 1-800-GAMBLER, where professional staff are waiting to assist anyone with the issue, find the local resources they need no matter what their situation. Citizens can also visit helpmygamblingproblem.org, where comprehensive resources combine in one easy-to-navigate space. Again, we thank you, commissioners and the county staff, for their support and assistance in bringing awareness to problem gambling and proclaiming the month of March, National Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, item 2A. Mr. Mark Widmeyer is the governor's special assistant, liaison,
Right hand, we can keep going.
whatever, that's right, something.
Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the banquet at Mount Savage. It was to honor the volunteer fire department for their 120 years of existence. During the presentation, I also found out something else that I didn't know, and I'm very sorry I didn't. And when the governor and I talked about this, he said, "You take care of this, will you?" Mr. Dan Williams, would you please come up here? Any of you know Dan because he always has the Pledge of Allegiance and does a great job. Dan Williams, 50 years of outstanding service, be it known that on behalf of the citizens of this state, in recognition for 50 years of outstanding and dedicated service on behalf of the Mount Savage Volunteer Fire Department and the community, in appreciation for your dedicated efforts to protect the safety and well-being of the community and its residents. And as your fellow Americans join in expressing our great respect and admiration and best wishes, we are proud to confer upon you this governor's citation, and we dated it for March the 3rd, which was the date of the banquet, 2018, and signed by Governor Larry J. Hogan Jr., Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford, and Secretary of State John Wobenspell. So congratulations.
That night, and I didn't realize this till the next day, it was my 50-year thing. My son's 25th Gold Card Life membership there too. It was his 25th year.
Congratulations to the family.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for
Sir.
letting me do that.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir, Dan.
Thank you.
Honor well deserved, sir.
Very good. Moving to our public hearings, we have a road closing petition, Cresttown Eagles 2883 Incorporated. Mr.
Yeah,
You want to take this, Bill?
Yes. This closing took place, the opening of the road took place several weeks ago. This is a paper street between two properties that are owned by the Cresttown Eagles, and that's facilitate their expansion of basically onto the adjoining site for outdoor activities, et cetera. There was no opposition last time. If anybody is opposed to the closing, this would be the day to do that, and if there is none, then you certainly could take action this evening if you so choose.
All right. This is a public hearing. Is there any public comment on the road closing petition? Hearing none, is there a motion to move forward?
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our action agenda. This is item number 4, US 220 Laurelhurst Boulevard entrance. Mr. Adam Patterson.
Commissioners, good evening. As you're aware, that we've been working, and the engineering division has been working on the entrance plans for Cumberland Chase out on 220. We're approaching another milestone with that project. We're finished preliminary plans. We're updating the plans with latest comments, not only internal, but also from State Highway and also from permitting agencies. And so this evening, I'm asking your permission to be able to advertise the project here very soon. Any questions?
Fantastic, Adam.
No,
Exciting project for the county, that's for sure.
this is great moving forward, and I know staff and you have spent a lot of time on this, so thank you for that.
I'll make a motion for item number 4.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, item number 5 is a priority letter to MDOT. Ms. Sierra Wakefield.
So every year, MDOT, they put together their consolidated transportation program, and around April is when they expect to see each county send in their projects that they would like to have funded. So this year we had a meeting with local municipalities. We invited our elected officials. We met on Wednesday, February 28th, and we sorted the 21 projects in priority order. And so this letter here, I would like the commissioners to endorse, so we can send it to MDOT once I get the final signatures. I already have 5 signatures from the municipalities, so we're well on our way to getting this accomplished. So hopefully they'll fund some projects that we have at the top of the list, or all of them. That would be really good.
Very good. Any discussion?
Make a motion, we do this?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sierra. All right, moving to our consent agenda. Mr. Butler.
Commissioners, good evening. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Item number 6 is a authorization to the detention center to transfer funding for the purchase of a 12-passenger van from the state bid list. Item number 7 is the Emergency Services Board appointments. To authorize Michael McGowan to be the chairman of the Fire Service Subcommittee, Timothy Dayton for the Fire Service Subcommittee member at large, and Jesse Schultz, chairman of the EMS Subcommittee, and finally Alan Ruby for the EMS Subcommittee member at large, all serving 1-year terms on the Allegany County Emergency Services Board.
Any discussion?
All good people.
Is there-
Fantastic picks. Richard, I don't know how you pulled that off, but good for you, sir. So,
Is there a motion?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Mr. Butler, welcome.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Shade and Valentine and Brody. I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. This is the first time behind the microphone. I would also want to just again reiterate my thanks to the outgoing County Administrator, David Eberly, who has been not only a friend, but has been fantastic in this transition, as well as our staff. I am very pleased to be working with them in the upcoming weeks and months and years ahead. So thanks, guys.
Great. Mr. Rudd.
I have nothing further.
All right.
Thank goodness.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Valentine.
Just real quick, MACO meetings are drawn to an end for this year, which is a good thing. But this past Wednesday, there was a few votes taken in Annapolis that's going to help our budget out locally here quite a bit. And everybody has to realize things that go on in Annapolis have a huge effect of what goes on here. So we have to keep an eye on things.
Absolutely, sir. Well, we've had a long day today because we've sat through budget hearings most of the day, and there seems to be a little misconception going around the county that Jason's got more money than he knows what to do with, so kind of a little bit shocked at that. With that being said, one thing that it looks like it's moving through the session pretty good for us is our AT-ville we asked for. It mimics and the same thing Garrett County already has. Reason I say that is the other night at some of the municipality meetings, there was some discussion on that as to what, who, what, where. That will be county roads only. It does not include state. We have no jurisdiction over state roads, and that does not include municipalities. They have their own jurisdiction and can adopt this themselves. So it looks like if everything is good by October 1st, we ought to be good to go. More to come as follows on this, because since we're in kind of a co-op with Garrett County, we agreed to share stickers. I want to make sure that, and we do, that everything is in line with what they have so that no one is slighted one way or the other.
Absolutely.
So, sir, I'm sure you're going to want to wrap this up a little bit more on the budget, maybe.
Yeah, certainly. And the good news on coming out of Annapolis, looks like we're going to get some more highway user funds. Again, it's certainly not what we were getting at the peak, but when it's a couple $100,000 extra that we can put right back into roads and infrastructure and public works, it certainly helps, because that's something that we've had to shift money from other places in order to try to make best. We did have budget hearings today. They will continue next Thursday, 2 Thursdays on the 22nd. The Board of Education, some of those other entities will be there. So it is a public session. You're free to come. And then we will compile all that with a final budget date, I believe, the beginning of June. So we're going to wrap up before, certainly before the end of June, hopefully into May, beginning of June. So we have some time just in case we need to, make some edits. But you know, we have some salary increases baked in there. We've made a commitment to emergency services, to fire, and that's something that's important, but it doesn't come cheap. And you know, seeing that we've gone from I believe about 18 employees to over 60 in order to staff those calls on ambulance stuff. It hasn't been cheap, so that's a good bit of money is going to that. That's a new line item that certainly is worth the cost, and that's definitely going to pay off down the line. So when you want to know where all the money's going, that's one of the places. Okay, we only have one person signed up to speak tonight, Mr. Kenneth Wilmot.
Good evening. I'm Kenneth Wilmot. I live at 513 Ford Avenue. The other evening I was watching TV, and there's a program, and this lady says, autism. One, out of every 114 births, a child's going to have autism. That is a 600% increase in the last 20 years. Now give some thought. How in the world are we going to prevent any more of our children being born without autism? Billions of dollars have been spent on cures for autism, all kinds of diseases, cancer, you name it, whatever. Now then, get out on your computer, if you check, out in California, sea otters are turning up dead on the seashore. Now we got deer with wasting brain disease. And we got children being born with autism. This is a tragic. It is worse than the opioid problem we have with people dying from opium. If we're going to go at this rate, I'd say another 5 years, every child born is going to have autism. And that's horrible. Now then, let's go back out to California, where these sea otters are turning up dead on the shore. It took biologists in California almost 20 years to figure out what these sea otters were dying from. It's a cat-borne disease. It eats out the brain. It leaches out of the kitty litter that people put out. When it rains, everything leaches into our rivers, our bays, everywhere. Now then, we got deer wasting disease. How did that happen? Very simple. People are putting out big plates of cat food out on their back porch and out in the yard. Everybody feeds out of it. Cats, raccoons, possums, birds, deer. A couple of years ago, we had a rabid deer up in LaVale, attacked a woman. Now, how is it that all over America there's a huge problem with autism? And what did we see on TV? They showed 4 families, and all these 4 families, they had X amount of dogs and cats running everywhere in their house. Now, cats and dogs carry the most horrible diseases in the world. People don't want to admit it, but that's the way it is. And we got people here in Cumberland, Allegany County in the United States that think that cats and dogs do not carry any form of disease. I can remember at a city meeting, Mr. Court Brubaker stood up at that meeting and told them, mayor and the city council, that it's impossible for anybody to get a disease from a cat or a dog other than by eating his feces. Oh, ain't nobody going to do that. And everybody laughed. Well, I got news for you. Get on your smartphones or computers and type in cat licks a woman's eye in Ohio. She lost her eye from a cat licking her in her eye. She thought she had pink eye. But the doc said, "You got a cat?" "Yep." "Well, that's the disease that eats out your eye." And then over in England, if you really want to know some good stuff, type in Manchester, England. Dog licks a man's face. What kind of disease did he get? It's the most horrible one that hits our hospitals right regular. MRSA, whatever they want. Now, these dogs and cats carry horrible disease. Don't give it. We got people that think they're made out of porcelain. They don't carry fleas. They don't carry Lyme disease. They don't, or any of that stuff. But they do. And they should never be kenneled in the people's homes. That's where all this is going on. If you're going to have cats and dogs in your house, you're going to have problems with your children. And if you read up, get on the computer, women who are pregnant should not even go anywhere near a kitty litter box.
1 minute, Mr.
Yes. Thank you. That's good.
Okay.
I've said enough. I hope that somebody will get on the ball, because another 4 or 5 years, there ain't going to be a child born that doesn't have autism. How are we going to run this world with people on autism? It's tragic that we got people that think that they can have as many cats and dogs in their house as they want and get away with it, but you can't. Thank you.
All right. I believe we had one more. Do you want to speak? Okay.
Apologize for my, just kind of throwing about on paper, but for,
Name and address, please.
my name's Trevor Labor. My address is 924 Bedford Street. I'm going to read to you from the phone because it's easier. My concern that I'm bringing up is, for the last several years, many of you have been aware of the declining situation that is the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. And now most recently, another postponement of the restoration of C&O number 1309. Several concerned individuals, myself included, in response to the Scenic Railroad's attitude towards public safety and noticeable backward advancement, have decided to step forth and offer a proposal to return the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad to what it would have been circa 2008, 2009, roughly. I got to start like this. Basically, what this started in 2013, a gentleman by the name of Michael Grisham had taken over the reins from Frank Fowler, who was the general superintendent. And for those of us who were still employees there, we thought that this was going to be a very good savior. It was going to be great that we could have somebody that was willing to work and knew what the tourist railroad industry needed, and especially at the Western Maryland, in order to advance with other things. We've really moved forward from, it's no longer just, reliving history. We now need to move forward and, princess trains, educational trains. We need to also turn it into a educational tool instead of just a tourist railroad. As many of you are aware, there are 2 steam locomotives on the property, both owned by the Scenic Railroad, the 1309, and of course, the locomotive that started it all, 734. Both of these locomotives have been in service, 1309 since she arrived, and 734 since April of 2016. Under the weird circumstances for Michael Grisham's tenure ending and then passing to John Gardner, I've noticed that there has been a lot of unnecessary spending in spots that doesn't necessarily need to be spent in those senses. Renumbering coaches is not something that needed done. Painting the equipment is not something that needed done. It was safe, it was reliable. The only thing that needed updated on was its safety appliances. That was it. I don't know if any of you know this, but the 501, one of the GP30 diesels, was painted last year. That is not a cheap endeavor. That is a relative to $40,000 to $60,000 paint job. That's $40,000 to $60,000 that they claim that they don't have money to restore the 1309 or start with the rehabilitation of 734. I am here to put pressure on them, as I believe that an external audit needs done for the fact that there is, like I said, there's money that's going to things that don't need done right away. Having a locomotive run is great, but if you have no track, where are you going to run it? Okay, and the same thing goes if you have track, you don't have a locomotive. What's the purpose in restoring track that you're not going to use? Default, I know that the county runs, gives them an operating agreement as the county owns the right-of-way. So there is an operating agreement that is in the books. Also, the county owns most of the equipment adversely due to the way that it was designed, and I'm not all too sure on this. I'll have to go in further. What it amounts to is that if the railroad were ever to enter bankruptcy, the board of directors at the Western Maryland Scenic Road Development Corporation is responsible to incur those losses. which means that, and I know the county sunk a good chunk of money into that scenic road over the last 23 years, and I know it has. Basically what it means is that money that you had has gone to the scenic road in the forms of the hotel motel tax or any of the appropriated monies over the years has gone to equipment acquisition. Basically, there's also been in the runs that they're trying to sell off equipment. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me considering there's 30, 40, 50 pieces of equipment over in Ridgely that the railroad has bought itself, had donated, or the county has provided money for. And if the railroad were to enter bankruptcy, you would lose those investments. So basically what I'm here is there's a group of people that are willing to step forth and go in and say, this is what needs done, this is how it should be run, this is how it was run, and it was successful. The only thing is we needed to change the tactic, not into just being a tourist railroad, but into being a heritage railway, for lack of a better term. This isn't just getting people on a train and going up to Frostburg and back. There are 2 steam engines, plenty of antiquated equipment, severely antiquated equipment that has stories from all over this country. It needs to stay there, and it should be preserved, and it should be operated and done as a heritage railway, not a tourist railroad. And the money that we were supposed to restore 734, I was an ex-employee. The final cost for that was supposed to be done in-house was $750,000. This 1309 is well into the millions. Those figures just don't add up. I was on the crew that went to Baltimore when we did the assessment of the engine. And even then, it was only supposed to be a $600,000 job. Why is it in 1.31416 million? And why do they need another $350,000 that some of the state legislatures in Annapolis want the county to kick out? That doesn't seem very fair to me on your behalf, and that doesn't seem very fair that they're hiding things on their own behalf. A lot of employees, good employees that have been dedicated for years, that have been there, have been sidelined, kicked off, barred from the property in senses. Other people have gone to other parts of the country and have tried to get other jobs, and the record keeping for engineers, brakemen, conductor certifications doesn't exist until a lawsuit is threatened filed for the FRA. Then magically the paperwork shows up. So there is issues internally that need addressed, and without a group of people doing this, without push from the right people, there is no way for this to be turned around. And in a couple years' time, it's very possible that there will be no more Western Maryland Scenic Road. It will just be 2 rails going through the county for 16 miles that you're paying taxes on, and there'll be nothing there. And the equipment at that point in time will have to be sold because that's the board of directors. That's as much as I can really I could ramble for hours, but I understand.
Jason, do you want to touch on the audit piece?
We actually don't get audited financial statements from them. We get it's called a compilation report. They have an outside accountant who does monthly write-up work for them. Very similar to what an audit would be. But what this gentleman is talking about is if you were to do a financial audit, it would catch some of the things he's talking about. A financial audit looks to see if the numbers are correct. It doesn't look to see if they're spending their money on the right kind of things. So I think what would need to be done would be an operational audit. So you need someone who's sort of an expert in the business to come in and take a look at how they're spending their money.
Be worth a while to look at.
I think it certainly would.
Conversation with somebody.
And Mr. Labor, the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad was here today, that they were asking for an additional $60,000 in their appropriation. And so we had an exchange that was somewhat similar, and we hit on some of the same points, that they've spent over $1 million on the 1309 with about $530,000 left to make it happen. And again, that's all taxpayer money.
I will say this, though, that the grant There was a $400,000 grant that was awarded from the state of Maryland that, like, financial audit needs done. $400,000 can go very far on a locomotive, regardless of what state of deterioration that it's in. It goes very far. I mean, when 734 was returned from Illinois in 1993 and completely from the ground up rebuilt, maybe $650,000. I mean, yes, that was in 1993, but that was from the ground up. The locomotive returned for 23 years worth of service after that. You know, so I mean, yes, it does take a good chunk of money to get these living beasts running and keep them running, but it does not take to the amount that they're going to say that it is. I mean, Dan Pluta, the old chief mechanical officer, was publicly humiliated in Michael Grisham's regime. That's not the real point, but he had a good budget. And my father, who was a master machinist, he had a budget figured out for the rehabilitation of the coaches. And over the next 15 years, it was only supposed to be about $2 million. 15 years and $2 million, and that keeps, what, 20-some pieces of equipment operating? We don't ask for money. I mean, equipment leases that used to go to CSX were knocked off. That was $40,000 a year just in first-class cars that went to the Kentucky Derby or the PGA tournament. That was $40,000 that was killed. Contract work from all over the country, big names. Gentlemen, there's a coach in Ridgely around, gentleman's a pilot for Norwegian Airlines. He's not even allowed on the property to access his car anymore. He has to call and get a waiver, and they will fuel tariff and surcharge this and this, that, and the next thing to get it over so he can view it at Cumberland just to shove it back behind a gate at the end of the day. We never had those issues. It was always at our discretion, yes, but we never had issues. We never barred people from the property. If an employee left and needed to come back for whatever situation, they were allowed to come back.
Sure. Mr. Labor, I think it'd be helpful if you talk maybe individually with the county administrator after this.
Okay.
And maybe give him some detail. I'll speak for myself, and I think the board feels this way as well. We want the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad to be successful. And I don't think people know that they generate about $1.8 million in ticket sales every year, which is a ton of money. But they're also getting a ton of money from the government. And so that's where we come in, where if you're getting about $400,000 a year in local and state money year in, year out, obviously you need that function to be sustainable. And I have that worry. And I obviously don't have as much knowledge as you do, but I think this is an issue that we're going to continue working on these next couple months moving forward.
If I've learned anything, transparency is key.
Sure, absolutely, because we can't have the railroad fail. You know, that's not an option.
I agree.
Okay?
Thank you.
Right.
Could I say something? You know, Cumberland has got to be full of senior citizens and people that have 30, 40 years working on steam engines. Now, why can't we get some of them people interested, get them over there, and, you know, we might be senior citizens, but we haven't forgot what we worked on, how it functioned. You know, a lot of the manuals for repair are gone, you know.
Absolutely.
And there's got to be hundreds of people in Cumberland that worked on steam engines. And
All right.
I think that's a good, reliable source of wealth for this railroad.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Wilmot. We do have one announcement. We're making this public. The opioid lawsuit, we're having a public meeting. It's a joint lawsuit between Allegany County government, City of Cumberland, and City of Frostburg. There will be a public event Tuesday, the 13th, 6 o'clock at Allegany College Theater. This is part of a national lawsuit that we're joining into over 260 counties across the country. And we're being represented by the Pool Law Group of Hagerstown. Mr. William Rudd, Michael Cohen, who represents the City of Frostburg and Cumberland, will be present, the commissioners, as well as the mayors and council with Cumberland and Frostburg, so along with some law enforcement folks. So that is something that I think is a long time coming. People talk about this opioid crisis, and they look to the pharmaceutical industry and the manufacturing industry, and finally I think the day is coming. Okay, with that, Our next public business meeting here is Thursday, March 22nd at 5 o'clock. We do a budget hearing that day at 1 o'clock in this room. Thank you.